Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Facebook Live. It is 2 o'clock on the West Coast, where I am in California. It is 5:22 in Puerto Rico, and that is Paddington making noise because he'd rather be playing than listening to me do another interview. Thank you all for joining us. A special thanks to my guests who join us now. Fermín Fontanés, am I pronouncing it properly?
Fermín Fontanés, thank you.
Fermín Fontanés is Executive Director of the Public-Private Partnership Authority in Puerto Rico. Wayne Stensby is President and CEO of Luma. Luma is a newly created company which will manage the distribution and transmission systems of the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority. Wayne is Canadian. You'll hear a bit of the accent. Fermín is originally from Puerto Rico. Did I do it okay?
Yes.
Fermín, I'm working on my Puerto Rico. You got to roll that R. One thing, gentlemen, I've said to your teams when they came to me today to offer this opportunity, and I appreciate it, is that there's a lot of things you can focus on. What I'd love to spend time focusing on is how is this going to directly affect people? In other words, folks who are paying really high prices and who see the power go off every other day. What's going to change for them and how fast is it going to change? We'll get to that, but we need to handle some housekeeping. Fermín, for people who don't know, number one, what is the public-private partnership? Who do you report to, and what does your organization do?
Okay, the Public-Private Partnerships Authority is a public corporation within the government of Puerto Rico. I report directly to the governor of Puerto Rico, well, first to my board of directors and to the governor of Puerto Rico. We are essentially, I would say, a procurement boutique type of operation. We're a really small operation where we seek to enter into public-private partnerships for different services and activities that the government usually offers the people, but that we understand are going to be better served through a partnership with the private sector. I'll give you two examples with, I think, from watching one of your Facebook Lives with the Aerostar CEO and president you're aware of, is the airport here in Puerto Rico, which is a public-private partnership. And I think after the COVID-19 pandemic crisis began, we saw how important that partnership was. And I think we also lived through that through Hurricanes Irma and Maria. The other example that we have that has been a successful P3 in Puerto Rico is PR22 and PR5. Both of these transactions have received international acclaim, have been awarded prizes in the US, and have been recognized for the transparency of the process, for the accomplishments, and for taking the services that the government was providing to another level. I think if you ask anybody that lives in Puerto Rico and experienced both the airport before the P3 and after the P3, and both the PR22 and the PR5 before and after, they will tell you that the difference is huge. When we look at the highways, when we compare that one that's being managed and operated by the private sector with the PR52 and other highways in Puerto Rico, the difference is dramatic before and after the hurricane. So that's what we specialize in doing, and that is why we're seeking to do the same for the electric system.
And listen, I'm mindful for all of you watching. You come to this interview with your own opinion, and I fully respect that. What I want to focus on, rather than litigating whether or not there should be things privatized on the island, is the now and the current situation, which is the contracts have been signed and the work is moving forward. So just a disclaimer there. Wayne, if we can, tell us a little bit about you. Luma is a company that I believe was formed just this year. It's brand new. It was formed for this very purpose of doing work on the island, correct?
That's absolutely correct, David. And Luma Energy, or Luma, was formed in response to our bid that Fermín and the P3 had set out about 18 months ago. They They had set out looking for pre-qualified bidders for this P3 opportunity to be the transmission and distribution private operator. And Quanta Services, a company out of Houston, and ATCO out of Canada, who've done work together. We've done work together for decades, and we've had recently some very successful P3 work that we've done. And so on the back of that, we came together. We joined with IEM, Innovative Emergency Management, to form a consortium in response to the P3 tender. And to do that, when we really thought about some of the unique requirements for Puerto Rico and some of the unique things that we were able to bring from our parent companies, we felt that was best done if we come together in a consortium and we form this new entity called Luma Energy.
Okay. For everybody watching, there will be an opportunity to ask questions. I have a couple of producers who are on the other end watching this and will be sending me some of your questions so I can ask it to our individuals. This is what happens when you're doing work from home and you see your dog who has something in his mouth that he shouldn't have. You have to excuse yourself to step up briefly and get it. Paddington, you can't put that in your mouth. Thank you, gentlemen. I would be embarrassed and apologize, but this is just life in a COVID-19 world where we're doing work from home. So thank you for your patience. Having said all of that, and thank you for helping me handle some of the housekeeping, which one of you is equipped to best answer this question first? What is the first thing that Puerto Ricans will see in how things will get better?
I'll take it, Fermín, and you can feel free to jump in. But I might just take a half a step back, David, and the structure of what we're doing here has us for the next 10 to 12 months in this front end transition period, which is broadly a planning period. Given the complexity of the electric system here in Puerto Rico and some of its challenges and the complexity of some of the challenges within PREPA, there is still a substantial amount of planning and learning and understanding as we go through this preparatory period or front end transition. Once we've completed that and we've completed a number of call it contractual deliverables, we then move into the operating phase where Luma is accountable for the transmission and distribution operation.
May I ask a question right there? How long do you think that front end process takes before you actually start doing the, let's say, man on the ground work?
Somewhere between 10 to 12 months.
Okay.
Is what we think. And so in this front end period, we're, in this planning phase, we're out doing, talking to PREPA employees, and we'll be doing recruitment. We need to hire and build out the Luma organization. We need to complete our organizational design. We need to fold a bunch of the existing PREPA plans into one system remediation plan. We're going to need to prepare some rate applications and get before the PREB, the Puerto Rican Energy Bureau, the regulator, and quite a number of other things. So I think what people will see in Puerto Rico from us for this first, call it 10 to 12 month stage, we will continue to let people know what we're doing. I think they will see us out in the communities. They will see us out talking and being part of the PREPA workforce. I thought it was key, though, that we identified some early wins. And it's kind of directly to your question is, how does the person on the street or how does a customer in Puerto Rico identify that there is something happening? And so we were able to identify a number of areas where we thought we could bring some value directly today. And those are breaking loose some of this federal funding. So IEM is a federal funding FEMA expert. And so our teams from IEM are going to work with PREPA to see if we can't get some of this federal funding flowing more quickly. Pardon me. As we've now entered hurricane season or just entered hurricane season, we want to be able to augment the PREPA teams and the other teams here for hurricane preparation and if necessary for hurricane response. And so we're going to quickly over the next few weeks understand better where PREPA is at and how we can best help that situation. We
Okay.
have, I think, some really interesting plans to open a line workers college or technical trade college here. And in a few months, we'll, have a bit of a groundbreaking ceremony, and we'll celebrate the opening of the college, which will allow us down the road to train and improve the skills of some of our own employees and workforce, but also perhaps a more, broad-based opportunity across Puerto Rico for skills development.
One of the first questions that we've got, Wayne, as you're talking is what happens to the current employees?
Yeah, so Luma today will be recruiting from PREPA. We'll be recruiting primarily from PREPA, and we have an interest. We had the opportunity as we worked through this 18-month process to meet a number of the PREPA employees. There's obviously many we didn't have an opportunity to meet, but we met some great people and some great talent. And so as we design the Luma organizational structure, we'll be looking to recruit those PREPA employees into Luma.
So is it essentially you create Luma and then everyone who works at PREPA has to apply for a job at Luma, or do they automatically get a job at Luma?
No, it's the first.
Okay,
the people,
so they have to.
People that are in PREPA that wish to join Luma
Yep.
will apply to come work for us.
What happens if an employee works for PREPA and doesn't want to work for Luma and wants to stay at PREPA?
And Wayne, let me take this one. I think it's important to know that all of these worker rights were protected under the law. The way the contract and the procurement process was undertaken, and it was a criteria that the partnership committee evaluated when they were considering which bidder they were going to move forward with. The law protects the employees, so there's no firings associated with or terminations associated with this transaction. The way the law, the Act 29 and Act 120 are established, the selected proponent, in this case Luma, has the obligation to interview all the PREPA employees first. So they are the first option. But the employees have the right, if they want to, either go with Luma or stay with PREPA. What we're doing here is we're splitting that vertical integrated monopoly that PREPA has. So we're going to split the entity in two. We're going to have a generation company that's going to remain with the government for now, and then we have the T&D transmission company that's going to be Luma, but the assets and the title to all those the title to all those assets remains with the government of Puerto Rico. So this is not a privatization. It's an operation and maintenance agreement where Luma comes in to operate the system that belongs to the people of Puerto Rico. So
you're saying not privatization because the government still owns the assets to everything. Luma is just doing the work.
Luma is just doing the work. And it's important because it's not only the assets, but it's also the revenue. When we compare it to Arastart or Metrovistas, it's a full concession. This is not a full concession. So all that revenue stream still belongs to the government of Puerto Rico. So Luma will be operating and managing that budget for the government of Puerto Rico. That was really important for us to maintain the access to federal funding, because this is not going to the private entity. It remains with us. So all that federal funding remains guaranteed.
To your point on that, Fermín, is the use of money by Luma still going to be inspectable by the public? Like right now, all the FEMA funds have to go online and people can see where it's going. Is that still the case with Luma using money to repair the grid?
Yes,
okay.
Precisely. That's what we were looking for. We were looking for that transparency. We were looking to make sure that we had a private operator that was going to come in and assure that we took advantage of that funding and that we maximize that funding, optimize everything, and get the best grid for Puerto Rico. But not only that, all those budgets that Luma is going to be working with still have to be approved by the Puerto Rico Energy Bureau. So you still have an independent regulator that's going to be looking into their operations to make sure that they're doing everything within the regulatory framework that's established.
Ian on Facebook asked this question. So anyone who wishes to work with Luma has to go through the current labor reform, yes or no?
What do you mean the current labor reform?
Well, he's essentially saying, will they lose the benefits they've acquired through their years of PREPA if they end up going over to Luma?
It depends. The act provides some flexibility of how they want to manage that. So I think in the end, the employee has the options here. They have the option to go with Luma. They have the option to remain with the government. They have the option to some of the acquired rights that they have, they can take with them, or they can determine that, you know, what Luma is bringing to the table is better, and they're gonna go with that. So I think the flexibility and the options are with the employee.
If they,
Obviously, this is designed for trying to acquire all these people for Luma because they are the talent, they're the skill force, they're the ones that have the experience, and those are the people that Luma needs. So
if Luma's doing the distribution and transmission, but someone wants to stay with PREPA, what work is there left for them to do?
you still have the generation company, you still have the generation fleet that consists of Aguirre, Palo Seco, Costa Sur.
Gotcha.
So they can sell in that branch of PREPA, but we would also expect people or PREPA employees that are currently in generation that want to join Luma because of the opportunities that Luma will provide. So, you know, number of challenges that we had with this. Obviously, we all know the condition of the system, the poor condition, but we also needed to modernize the workforce, the skills. You know, we needed that training. I think we were looking and we provided you with a copy of the partnership report. You'll be able to look at all of that in detail. But we were looking for opportunities for the people of Puerto Rico and the employees. I think critical for us were the employees, obviously, for the customers, but federal funding, the improvements to the grid. You lived through it, David. You know what happened in Puerto Rico after Maria. We're trying to end that. You know, there was a lot of suffering associated with that, and that was essentially our goal with this transaction, was to avoid this from happening in the future. Obviously, as Wayne said, this is not going to happen overnight. This is a long process, but with taking the politics out of PREPA, huge continuity. We've had 5 CEOs in this term, not even 5 years. 5 CEOs in 4 years,
Yeah.
10 CEOs in 10 years. It's a $3.5 billion business. You know, there's no continuity. There's no stable planning, no leadership that remains. That uncertainty is what Luma is going to provide the employees as well. So
And we should say that this initial green light was given by the former governor, Ricardo Rosselló, right? He's the one that wanted to move forward with this.
yes.
Okay, so he started the wheels in motion. The current governor, who we all know was not elected but is running for election, has continued the process and is overseeing it now. Wayne, I want to come back to you in just a moment with that original question of how are people going to see a difference, like what's going to improve in my life, so to speak. But Fermín, one more for you. You're Puerto Rican, and this non-Puerto Rican who loves the island has learned that the Puerto Rican people are very proud. I'm looking around because the computer needs a charge, so I'm going to step away while you answer it. But you know that the people of Puerto Rico, you say it's not a privatization, but you're bringing in a private company to do it. And what I've learned is in listening, I've done a lot of listening to people in Puerto Rico. They're very reticent and fearful that outsiders coming in to take over is just another part of this plot to sell the island, right? And to privatize it and benefit from it. You're from there. I know you've heard this from people. This is not the first time. What do you say? What do you say to them?
Well, again, electricity, it's an essential service for the people.
Keep going.
When the PREPA was first established, that was their mission. You know, we wanted, or at that time, PREPA had the mission to take electricity to every corner of the island. It was really a social justice mission at that time. I think what has happened in the last couple of decades is that the political interference with the utility has had a huge impact, not only for the customers, but for the organization as a whole. I'll give you, I think, well, we all know that PREPA is under Title III in bankruptcy. They
Bankrupt.
have a
Yep.
$9.1 billion debt. It's a monopoly. You know, they're the only
Yep.
electricity service provider on the island. They have $3.5 billion in revenue. Somehow, from 2000 to the present, they really have been operating under in negative, under their budget, because from 1989 to 2016, there was no change in the rate structure. So politics involved, no decisions were made to improve the rates, no investment was made in the grid, no investment to maintain the grid, but to modernize the grid. We saw the results. We saw the results of that. The first rate case to change the rates was in 2016. If PREPA had been increasing rates slightly to accommodate for customer price index or just inflation throughout that time, PREPA would have more money to invest in the grid. If they had made the correct decisions, um, we probably wouldn't be in this situation. But again, politics, changes in administration, changes in CEOs, changes in planning. They had originally, I'll give you examples, and the people of Puerto Rico know this because we all have lived this. I have lived this. We had a natural gas pipeline that was going through the south to make electricity more affordable. It became a campaign issue. It was canceled by the next governor. Um, the next governor proposed a natural gas pipeline that will go across the island to bring cheaper electricity. It was canceled as well. The next governor came in and proposed an Aguirre offshore gas port to make electricity cheaper. It was also canceled. So, you see a history of inconsistent planning. This is an essential service. You cannot have that change in leadership. You cannot have that change in planning. The first step was to establish the Energy Bureau that is really going to set that plan. But we need somebody to implement that plan. And, if we keep changing those plans every 4 years, we're never gonna give the people the service they deserve. And I think in this case, this is too important to keep the politics in. And I
Okay,
have to
so
say,
you set up the next. No, you set up the next question, and Wayne, I'll let you answer this. Somebody asks on Facebook, how is Luma going to avoid political interference in their decisions?
I mean, at the end of the day, Luma will build long-term plans and work with the P3 and perhaps most importantly with the regulator, as every other utility does. We will be accountable to our regulator, which in Puerto Rico is the Puerto Rico Energy Bureau. And we'll put plans in place and the regulator will check and we'll run those regulatory public consultation hearings, and then we'll get approvals, and then we're going to move forward. So I think it's a much more, it's a longer term view, as Fermín said, and it's a very similar model that utilities kind of across North America use, David, to drive long-term outcomes. When you think of the large amounts of capital required in utilities, you really need that long-term planning horizon and long-term commitment, right? As you're spending what is going to be billions of dollars, if you do make those changes partway through, or you get into situations where for some reason you no longer want to make that large capital investment, you can spend a lot of money and achieve very little. And so that's why I think this framework is so powerful, is we can make sure that the money is actually being spent and is creating something.
How long is the contract that you guys have been hired to do work for?
15 years.
15 years. Okay, so you've told us now that it'll take 10 months or so. You got to get some front office stuff, so to speak, out of the way. So back to the initial question. What is someone who lives in Puerto Rico? I wish I did. What are they going to see first?
Well, I think the most obvious thing that they're going to see is we have some some strong plans on customer service. And so there's some technology, there's some processes, and there's some approaches to customers that we can get into place relatively quickly. And
Such as?
I don't want to, yeah, such as the way we work with call centers, and you know, simple things like the importance of relatively quickly answering the phone. When you call your utility provider, you need them to pick up the phone, and you need them to have a reasonable answer as to you know, whatever your question is. And so that capability and that technology is something that that we can roll out quite quickly. I think another, you know, our real focus in the early days is both, I mean, it's customer oriented, but it's really around reliability and resilience, and trying to, as quickly as possible, improve the reliability, reduce the number of outages. We're well aware of, and we found this during our bid process, we think there's some great value we can bring in terms of vegetation management. There's practices today within PREPA where really over time they've allowed that they've not been managing vegetation. And you'd be aware, particularly on the West Coast in California, you know, the implications of power lines and trees don't get along very well, right? And
well, you look at the power company out here, PG&E, that basically is paying billions of dollars for all these wildfires that were started because of mismanaged stuff. But there's a couple of things that you're saying that are so key. And for people who don't know, I want you to understand how pivotal and wildly important just answering the phone is. I mean, I heard from a Puerto Rican yesterday who said, David, when I first moved to the island, I called to get my service set up, and it took 3 hours to get somebody to answer the phone. That was just to set up service. They weren't even calling because they had an outage. And when people call today, you may have heard, Wayne, people use social media because they can't get through, or the interaction that they have with said individual on the other end of the line is not only delayed, but it's unprofessional. So if you can do that, I know a lot of people who would clap and be very happy, you know, basic stuff like that. Regarding the vegetation, that's obviously important because Fermín will tell you, and you know, Wayne, but for people watching, there have been some massive outages that have been caused by trees falling here on this power line, you know, and because things run from the south to the north, you have a little fall in the south and everybody in the north is affected and that kind of stuff. So those are two really important things. Wayne, go ahead. I'm sorry.
If I may add something,
Yeah,
I think
please.
it's important to understand that this contract is also about accountability. And Wayne, you know, I'm gonna throw you under the bus. You know, we set up the contract in a way to make sure that those things happen. So we established some performance metrics because those are the things that we know the people of Puerto Rico were doing. I think one of the issues when you have the government entity that is a monopoly, you know, they don't answer the phone, nothing's really going to happen. You know, what are they going to do? You know, they're just there. You have no other option. Here, now, the private operator is accountable. It's accountable because they have to meet the standards that the PREP is going to be imposing. They're going to have to comply with the requirements of the contract. You know, we looked at the reliability measures on average, and I know that most Puerto Ricans are not going to agree with the statistic, but under PREPA's numbers, the amount of time that people spend before waiting, before they answer the phone is 13 minutes. The national standard is less than a minute. We set up the contract in a way that Luma has to go after those standards. We have to get to that. The number of minutes per year that average customer for PREPA is without power, it's 742, so approximately 12 hours. Most people are going to say that that's a month. In my case, you know, they're going to say 12 hours in a year, that's a weekend, you know, because that's the reality for us. We set up the standard in the industry is less than an hour and a half. We set up the contract so that Luma aims for that national standard, for those benchmarks, and that's what we're looking to do here.
Let me ask a question to Wayne. Based on that, Wayne, when I hear somebody like Fermín say we can hold them accountable based on can they meet these metrics, does that mean that they're paying you at certain points over the course of the, you're not being paid everything in the beginning, right? I guess you'll have to meet some of these benchmarks in order to get phased payments. Is that correct? No?
The contract is set up in two components: a fixed fee and an incentive fee. Those are the incentive fees. Those are that the amounts that you or Luma can get as bonuses for complying with reaching those metrics that will be established together with
I see.
the Energy Bureau.
And those
So
are pretty significant to where they actually matter and the company would want to hit the
yes,
benchmark, right?
well, go ahead.
Absolutely, they are. And the other thing I would offer, David, is, you know, as we think about our other utility operations, and it will be no different here in Puerto Rico, is outages are expensive, right? They're not
Yeah.
only,
Yeah.
and, you know, they're not only expensive for the person who is impacted by the outage. They're expensive for the economy and for businesses, and we understand the importance of, you know, electricity is an enabler for economic prosperity, but they're also expensive for the utility because you're typically sending out people, you're paying overtime, you're running your system less efficiently. And so as we start to do some of those activities like improving vegetation management, that in itself will have a natural improvement on the cost structure and will help us move towards, you know, more affordable electricity.
Wayne, what is the reasonable timeline that someone in Puerto Rico should expect that you will be able to deliver reliable service where we could go 3 or 4 months with not having the power go out? How long do you think that would take Luma to achieve?
I think we'll see an ever increasing improvement, David, over the first 5 years of our contract. And I don't want to suggest that that people are going to see nothing until 5 years from now. I don't think that's the case. I think people will see an improvement in the first year, particularly on the customer service side. And I think we can get at some of the vegetation management pretty quickly. And so I think they'll begin to see an improvement. But I think people will really see that improvement kind of across that 5 year period.
Okay, thanks to my producers who are sending us some good questions from all of you on Facebook. So let me go through them. Number one, to either one of you, whoever is best to answer it, where will the call center be located on the island?
It'll our intention is to have it in Puerto Rico. It'll be local for sure.
It will be local. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We 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 have had a long history in our utility businesses with call centers, and we're firm believers that local-based call centers are the right option for customers.
How many people do you believe that Luma will employ?
We'll work through that in the next few months. I mean, it's a substantial organization today within PREPA, and it's going to be a substantial organization within Luma, but I don't have an exact number for you.
Would it be in the thousands or the hundreds?
It'll be in the thousands.
It'll be in the thousands. Next question. Will they make any commitment on rates when they take over? And I'll say this before you answer the question. One man sent me an example yesterday. He said, David, look at my bill. I paid $150 for the month, and the actual usage was about 48, and everything else was just all these fees that they had, about $100 in just miscellaneous fees.
Yeah, so as you know, and I'm sure as you know in California and kind of no matter where you are, rates are super complex, right? And I don't want to hide behind the complexity of rate structures, but they are very complex. For the first year, we're going to work through initial budgets. I don't think we won't be having a full take the rate system apart and put it back together approach. That's a very substantial effort and is not an early priority for us. You know, the way we've been describing kind of impact on rates is we believe and we've identified where we can get some of these early efficiencies, early cost savings. I mean, you simply look at the amount of money that PREPA has spent and is spending on third-party consultants. We believe that as we enter into the first year, we can absolutely find cost savings that will offset any of the operating fees that Luma are receiving for the contract. And that's super important to us, that we're going to earn our own way through this. And as we continue to find more and more of those efficiencies and cost savings, then that will help maintain rates. You know, the other piece over a slightly longer period of time, and a substantial part of the rates in Puerto Rico are fuel, right? Fuel for the generation fleet. And so that will, as you think about kind of longer term planning, we will become responsible for developing these longer term plans, integrated resource plans for the utility, and working in larger amounts of renewables and helping retire some of the less efficient and older fossil fueled generation sources. That will have a very substantive improvement on rates. And I guess the last thing I would say is on the rates topic is there is a very large amount of federal funding that's been available and earmarked for investment into the T&D system. And that federal funding is effectively a grant into the system. And so we can capitalize on that federal funding. We can make substantial system improvements, and none of that has an impact on rates. It simply gets treated as a grant, which is, I think, a huge win and opportunity for customers.
Someone asked, who's, please,
Okay,
Fermín, go ahead.
may I add a few things on the subject? When I want to highlight the fact on federal funding, because when we made the decision while we were going into this process that we wanted to go with an operator and instead of a full concession like Metro Pistas and Aerostar, was precisely for what Wayne just mentioned. We understood that it was better for Puerto Rico, instead of giving the system as a concession, if we hired an operator to come in, because we would have the access to federal funding. There was really a need for investment in the system, no matter what. That was unquestionable. We all knew it. We lived through it in Maria and Irma, but there's, you know, the only other way that a private company will come in a concession that they could raise the capital to make those improvements was going to be through the rates. So to protect the customers and assure that the rates were not going to be impacted by this process, we decided to go through with an operator and keep the revenues and the title for everything with the government of Puerto Rico. That way we can avail ourselves of federal funds. The investments, the capital investments come from federal funding, and it doesn't have an impact on the ratepayers. In addition to that, when we were evaluating the proposals, or the partnership committee was evaluating the proposals, the Luma team, I know I'm going into the selection process, and you will see it on the partnership report that's available for everybody on our website. They identified savings. They identified savings that would reach approximately $293 million in 7 years. So as Wayne was saying, we're looking into bringing in somebody that already from day one, besides before they went into the transition period, already knows and understands enough of PREPA to know where they can avoid some cost. Important with the political interference and those aspects. PREPA right now on their annual budget, they have $75 million on consultants. We're not hiring a consultant. This is not a Lisa Donahue structure. This is
Hang on. Did you say PREPA pays $75 million in consultant fees?
Yeah, that's on the budget. It's been all over the press. This is what we're talking about. We need to, instead of bringing in somebody to provide, a report on how PREPA should be doing something, we're bringing somebody that's going to do something.
To do something.
They're not consultants. They're going to be here to execute. They're going to be doing the plans and executing because they have that experience. So I think going back to your original question about privatization, I know that is a subject. I lived here. I've lived here. All my family is here. But I know that when the political interfering in an essential service is more of a I would say, a frustration for the people of Puerto Rico. than the issues that they may have on the other side, because we are all tired of living through the same thing, and we all suffer through Maria. Everybody. I mean, the entire island went black, so it not only affected a certain pockets.
So to that point, Wayne, I have to ask you, have you gotten the sense yet, and I don't know how long you've been on the island, um, these people have been let down for so long by so many people that um, just to have somebody who keeps their word and actually provides a respectable product, they not only deserve, but I think they would appreciate. Do you understand? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but just the human perspective. Like, do you understand how sort of beat up so many people feel by just years and years and years and years and years of mismanagement that you now will be entrusted to hopefully right?
I don't want to be so bold as to say I completely understand, because clearly I don't, and
I
clearly I
respect
couldn't.
that. Yep.
I what I do understand is I understand the significance of the decision to get a private operator, and I understand the very significant decision in choosing Luma, and I understand that what it means for Puerto Rico, and I said it yesterday, and I'll say it again, is we understand that electricity isn't just about poles and wires. It's about economic prosperity, and it forms the social fabric of societies around the world. And so if you can't get those building blocks there, the rest of the economy and the rest of the social structure is a struggle. And so absolutely, we understand that that the people that have chosen us, the partnership committee, um, have put their trust in us, and we are humbled by that. Our job is to move forward with that and show people that we really will do what we've promised we'll do. We're backed by companies. We come from companies where we make promises and we keep promises. We don't see this as simply a contract. We see it as a commitment to Puerto Rico, and we have every intention of making a meaningful impact on people's lives, being involved in the community, and I encourage people, as we're progressing through this first year, and then as we're progressing through the 5 years, we'll be listening to people, and I'm sure we will. I'm sure not everything will be perfect. I'm sure we'll make a mistake. I'd like to believe we'll put our hands up when we do, but you can believe that we're bringing everything we have to make a difference, and we're looking forward to that opportunity.
Maya Angelou says, when somebody, she said, the late Maya Angelou, God rest her soul, used to always say, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. So people will look to see who you are, and they will believe based on what you provide. I am big on questions from the audience, so please allow me to keep ticking through some of them as we get close to wrapping it up. How will you tackle the large task of getting improved electricity into the mountainous communities?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly logistical challenges in Puerto Rico, and what I would say is, both in Quanta and ATCO's case, we do work in some really challenging corners of the world, and I'm not suggesting that in the more mountainous regions of Puerto Rico it's going to be simple, um, but we have lots of experience and lots of capability, and lots of technology to apply to, I would say, work across most every terrain, and we're looking forward to bringing some of that here to Puerto Rico, and those the whole you touched on it, the whole north-south transmission, and a number of those issues I think are issues that we've already got a plan to solve. And
Does your plan involve leaving the grid the way it is and just rebuilding it, or just putting new things where it is, or maybe changing it so it doesn't require going from the south to the north and all that?
I mean, I don't think it'll be a wholesale change.
Okay.
So, I don't think you ever sort of start with a blank sheet and design it fresh. So I think you take what you have, and that's the optimization effort, right? You take what you have, and then with the best of technology, you understand how you can optimize where the capital investments go to make the biggest bang for the buck. And so I don't think we're going to just kind of take it all down and build a new one.
Okay.
We're going to start with where we've with what we have. I suspect, though, having said that, by the time you get through $15 billion or whatever it might be, and 15 years, it'll look pretty different 15 years from now than today, right? The generation will look very different, and a lot of the transmission and distribution will look pretty different.
Can you have transmission pole? In some places it's underground, right? And in Puerto Rico, most of it's above ground, right? Am I wrong? It's all above ground, I guess.
I think there is some distribution that's underground in Puerto Rico, and and I know even today PREPA is working on putting more distribution underground. Obviously, that's a more resilient approach for hurricanes.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. When you say it's going to look different, are we going to see are these stronger poles? For those of us who are not electrically inclined like you are, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think there probably will be more undergrounding across that period of time. Just from a sort of appearance perspective, I guess there's no question transmission towers and some of those things will look larger as you design them for hurricanes. But I don't know that to the average person, we're gonna get on top of lighting. I think lighting is an important aspect, but I don't know to the average.
What does that mean? Tell us more about that lighting. Why is that important?
Well, for me, lighting equals security and safety. And
you're talking about people lights in the house. I thought you meant lighting up the areas where the poles are.
No, but I do mean kind of street lighting and lighting in community. It's also for me it's the first thing you see, and it's the first thing you think about when you think of your electric company, right? If you drive around and 2/3 of the lights aren't working, that's an indicator, right? And so we're going to get on top of that as well.
Somebody asked, will you do a hurricane preparedness plan? Will that be a thing?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
In fact, we're going to take what PREPA has done over the last few months and work with them over the next few weeks to see what we can do to bolster and support their plan for this season.
Okay. Somebody, Ian asks, what type of assurances are there for the use of public monies for executive salaries and bonuses? Are there any deals for future positions for ex-politicians on your board or in your company?
Are there any deals for future politicians? So the board of directors for Luma and the top 6 executives are all funded out of the ownership, but all funded from the parents. So they don't come out of customer rates.
Okay. My producer just sent me one.
What ATCO and Quanta. That's what I was going to say. By ATCO and Quanta.
ATCO, right. Any plans to bury lines?
Yeah, absolutely. As part of the ongoing, as I said, I know some of that has already started, and absolutely there will be more undergrounding of distribution lines in years to come.
Is there a cost-benefit analysis and feasibility study? If so, who performed it, and can they provide it?
A cost-benefit analysis for?
They didn't say.
Okay, so we did, and it's part of the partnership report that we provided. We did a cost-benefit analysis for bringing in a private operator to take over the system, and we also, as part of obviously at the evaluation process, and you will also see that in the partnership report, we did a financial evaluation of the proposals that we received to look which proposal presented the best financial proposal for the benefit of Puerto Rico. So those have been done and those are there.
This is interesting. Somebody said, when will the interview process for the current employees and for people outside the company begin, Wayne?
Yeah, I think probably in the September, October timeframe. We're,
Uh,
we're going to go out and get to know people and spend some time as I said, understanding the prep organization a little better, but also giving people a chance to understand us a little bit and what we stand for before we get into actually interviews.
Okay. Is there anything I didn't? One of my producers is typing something right now. As we kind of wrap up, is there anything we've left out that you want to add? I keep thinking, Wayne, just more about what did you guys promise that people should know that you feel like you can deliver on? Like, do you think bills are going to go down $20 or $30? Is that something people can look forward to, or $50? I don't know.
I mean, I'd go back to two or three things, David, is I'd like people to understand that behind Luma, there are these organizations, Quanta, ATCO, and IEM, that individually have been around for decades. We've done work together for decades, and they are substantial organizations that don't make commitments lightly. And so they're committing to Luma, and in turn, Luma is committing to Puerto Rico. We're here for the long term. And I guess the other one is we're a very values-based organization. As our parents are value-based organization, we're a values-based organization. And so as you see us, we're going to put people first. We're going to focus on improving health and safety for both us and for the public, for customers. We're going to get dialed in on providing a much improved customer service, and we're going to do our job. And we're probably not going to be super flashy about it. We're going to tell people what we're doing, but we're the kind of organization that just kind of gets on with it. And so I hope people are able to judge us by what we deliver.
Wayne, let me say this to you. I walked into Puerto Rico. How long ago was that, Fermín? I guess 4 years ago, right? Or 3 years ago? 2017. Yeah, 17. I was an outsider, and there wasn't an opportunity to promise a whole lot of stuff about what I could do. I just did it, right? It was a hurricane. I went there to report, and I did it. And my experiences changed my life, and it's become sort of a personal passion of mine to report on issues involving the island. And what I have learned is that they are very welcoming of people from the outside who come in with good intentions and prove good work, right? And so, I wanted to do this because, I'm not an energy expert, but I'm a human being. And at the end of the day, the human beings who are not the energy academics, that's your audience. That's your audience, right? And that's the people who I hope you will earn their respect by the work you do. That is my hope for you, because it's my hope for them. If you do well, they do well, essentially. So
that's great, David.
Fermín, you got anything to wrap up?
Yes, I have a few things.
Go.
One, thank you for the opportunity. I think I want to highlight that our process is a transparent process. I think we published the contract and the partnership report on our website. I encourage everybody to go and look at it, particularly the partnership report, because the partnership report is a summary of the entire procurement process from day one, when we started the market sounding, to the final selection. It will show you what we were looking for, the evaluation criteria, what the metrics were, what the bids that were received look like, how we compare them, why we chose the consortium, and it will explain to the people. I think it is important for people to be informed. I think it's important for people to take advantage that we're providing them with a real information. I'm not just telling you the story, I'm telling you the facts. I think those are there. I would love to come back and answer more questions. This for me is a commitment as well. It's a passion. This is the most historic transaction, I think, in Puerto Rico. It's going to change lives. And I want to answer the questions because I feel confident we did it right. And we need to do a lot of explaining. so that people feel comfortable with the transformation that we're looking for. I know that I'm putting a lot of pressure on Luma, but I have a lot of pressure as well. The partnership committee had a lot of pressure as well, and we all feel that we made the right decision for the people of Puerto Rico. And I think um, Luma is gonna be an entity that's gonna change people's lives, and that's what we're looking for. And again, I would love to answer all the questions that people come up with. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there. There hasn't been a lot of time for people to really understand what we are contemplating and the way that it's gonna go. But now that the process is over, we can talk about it. We can discuss it. We'll respond to the people's questions. And
What was how much of this was public before the deal was signed? I mean, were people allowed to give their opinion and weigh in?
well, in the P3 process, the way that it works is we have a part of the process that's open in terms of we publish the request for qualifications that everybody sees. Um, we do the Q&A with the interested parties at that stage that is open. But once we move into the RFP process, it becomes I would say a closed process, because we want to keep that competitiveness in the process. To give you examples of how in depth this competitive process is, we had over 18,000 documents that the bidders looked at. That's over 141,000 megabytes of information. They had over 20 sites visits. PREPA is thousands of miles of transmission lines, over 31,000 miles of distribution lines, um, over 328 substations, over 800 private substations that are connected to the grid. So we're talking on an in-depth, I would say, X-ray of the system that was provided to them. We have security issues. We want to maintain the competition between the bidders so that we get the best benefit for Puerto Rico at the end. With which we select, we had over 20 site visits that Luma and the other bidders came to town to meet with the people of PREPA, visit the facilities, inspect the system. Um, so it's open within the competitors because everybody has access to the same information, to the same visits, the same questions. They have to certify that they have no lobbyists. They have to certify that they haven't interfered politically here with lobbyists or at the federal level. So we make sure that, and I know Wayne can assert to this, that when you present that bid, you have complied with every step of the process. And now that process with I would say the entire path from beginning to end is out there for people to see. It's for them to verify themselves and feel confident that we did it the right way.
You know what I'm going to say. It doesn't sound like the most open process, but it is what it is. It is. I mean, I hear you, and you gave all the proper context, but you know me. I like open with capital letters. So I think this is an open process. That doesn't sound as open as arguably some people would like it, but this is where we are today. Gentlemen, I want to offer you both the opportunity to come back, but I would say when you come back to me with results, because I want to champion results that make a difference for people, right? Wayne, politics is big on the island. You're going to run into it everywhere, okay? But these are wonderful people who deserve a better life. They deserve a better life, period. And so, good luck.
Thank you. We're looking forward to
Thank
be
you.
part.
Good luck. I thank you. I thank you both. We'll do it. We'll do it again sometime.
Take care.
Be well.